recording. Okay. Let's not do that. Okay, guys. So I'm really excited. So tonight we have Kelsey Thorton on. She's an Ambassador Diamond, top 50 income earner. I've watched a million trainings that she's done, but I don't think I've ever heard her real story. So I'm excited to hear that. So we're just gonna jump right into this because like I said, we have lots of stuff to go over. We only have an hour before the family call. So we're gonna hop right in. Kelsey, I think you can just unmute yourself, which is perfect. Hi.
Thank you guys so much for spending your Sunday evening with me. I appreciate it. I hope you guys all had an amazing weekend. Thank you, Asia, so much for having me on and asking me to do this. I know it's a big deal. I always say it requires a level of trust when leaders ask other leaders to get people on their Zoom because, it's not, I don't know why my camera is like this. Hold on. Sorry. I'm squirrel brain. I don't know why, I think sometimes people take it for granted to be asked on a Zoom, but you have to have a level of trust for the person, to expose your team to them. And so I always think of it as an honor. And so I appreciate you guys letting me hop on with you tonight. And, just for a little bit of backstory, I think it's so easy to kind of sometimes get caught up in what my life looks like now and forget, kind of where I came from. So I, maybe from the outside, my life didn't look that much different. Almost 5 years ago on April 10th, it'll be 5 years, which is craziness. But my life was on the inside, I was just confused, to be honest with you. And I think I was excited to work. I was excited to get done with school. I was excited to do all the things and be an adult. And then when it came to it, I was this is what I'm going to be doing until I'm 65. This can't be it for me. So what our life looked like then was, it was really just a glorified paycheck to paycheck life. That's really what it was. And I think, struggling is all relative for people. One of the things that I struggled with when I first got in was, is my story good enough? Because other people had these stories of welfare to millionaire or, oh, somebody started sharing the screen. Okay. So welfare to millionaire or whatever. And it was I wasn't on welfare. I was just wanting an extra $500 just to be bougie and get my hair and my nails done, and I think that's what I had framed it in my mind, but really I needed more than that. And sometimes if you guys want to ask yourself, I don't care if you joined today or you joined, 2 years ago, whatever it is, I really want you to ask yourself, is this money extra or is it necessary? Because sometimes we frame it as extra money, but it's money we actually need, right? It's money that is paying our bills. It's money that's paying off our student loans. It's money, whatever that case might be for you. A lot of people try to say it's extra money, but it's really not extra. It's just extra from what you're already making, right? So for me, I had just tried to make myself feel better and say that. I think it was just a defense mechanism that we all do, because if you don't know there's another way, you just kind of stick with the way that you're doing it. And I just remember seeing Erin Tweed post about how she's made a $25,000 bonus. She had went double diamond. And I was like, what is this girl doing? She clearly didn't make $25,000, but even if she made $200, I'm trying to figure out what she's doing. Cause she's definitely lying about the 25 grand, but I'm just at least going to ask. And, I was super skeptical, never done anything like this before. Everybody in my family has traditional jobs. My dad's a stockbroker, my uncles are whatever, my uncle works for human resources at Yum, blah, 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 blah. The list could go on. But I think that, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I just knew she was making money from her phone. And that's how simple it was for me. And I was like, well, I'm on social media anyways, being a troll, just trolling everybody and posting random pictures of the wall and my kid and whatever. And so I was like, okay, let me ask. And there was this moment where my husband and I were driving, and we were driving to this really nice area of town. And I just remember being like, who lives in these houses? What are those people doing? Have you guys ever wondered that? If you're driving through these really nice areas and you're like, who lives in those houses? I want to know what they do. They can't just because here's the thing, you guys, I had a college degree. I have my master's degree. My husband has his master's MBA. It wasn't we didn't do the things that we were quote unquote supposed to do by society's terms. We did all those things, but we were still living paycheck to paycheck. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I was literally like, babe, I'm just about to go be like, hello, how are you rich? Like literally that's what I wanted to do. But I ended up just like, we were talking about it and he's like, I just feel like everybody has a side hustle. And I was like, oh, maybe that's it. Like, maybe you're right. And then I started looking into it and still didn't reach out to her based on pride and fear and all these other things. And finally I read this article. It was like the next day after that conversation I had with my husband, and it said the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. And I literally was like, that's my sign. That's my sign from God. Okay. And I was like, because even if I want to be half a millionaire, your girl still has got to get 3.5 sources of income. Okay. So I ended up messaging her husband, Kyle, who I'd known very briefly from college. And I just said, how much money is your wife actually making doing this? Please don't BS me. Okay. I don't know who I thought I was asking that question. It's really rude. Don't do it that way. I just was rude, had no social feel. So I said, he was like, she's making about $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And I was like, Brian, that's my husband's name. I was like, Brian, babe, this dude is telling me she's making $8,000 to $10,000 a month. He's literally lying. Look at this. Look at this. And my husband was like, well, I mean, even if she's making half that, like you could at least make 500. And I was like, true. And I was like, oh, but you have to pay to start. It's a scam. And he's like, babe, how much is it? And I was like, it's $99. He's like, when's the last time you walked into Target and didn't spend $99? And I was like, are you calling Target a scam? Like, hold up, bro. I'm just kidding. But I was just like, you're right. And he just put it in a different perspective of like, everybody pays to start something, whether it's law, like whether you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school. If you want to be a nurse, you have to go to you have to pay for your nursing exam. You have to pay for your scrubs. You have to pay for your stethoscope. You have to pay for whatever, and I think that it's just not the way that we pay for it is different than the way other people pay for their jobs. Right. And so I think that for me, it was just kind of wrapping my head around it. And one thing that I'll tell you guys is that it never paid me to be skeptical with anything. Okay. Because I was raised by a very skeptical father. My dad is just like one of those people who thinks everybody's screwing him over. And I get a lot of that. Like I have a lot of that like in me. And I think that like what I've realized is like, it doesn't pay to be skeptical, like ever, like in anything. Okay. Like it pays to be smart, but like there's a difference just between being overly skeptical and almost paranoid to some degree versus just being smart, because the most open-minded people tend to be the most richest. And I was like, dang, like, okay, I gotta at least just go into this with an open mind. And that's really what Erin had told me. And when I talked to her on the phone. And it was kind of just an aha moment for me when I first started, because I asked her, I said, I'm just wondering, like, what do you think makes you so successful versus other people who do this business? And she said, because I just share my life. Like, I'm not just about business. I'm not just about whatever. Like, I'm just sharing my life. And so if you go back to 2015, when I first started, every post that I made was hashtag Thornton Family Adventure. Okay. Because literally, like, please actually don't go back because it's kind of embarrassing. But if you want some hope for your own social media, go ahead and search that hashtag and you'll find all my stuff on there. Okay. And I swear, like, I just was sharing my life, like everything we did, like I just shared it. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate the business. And so whenever I feel myself start to do that, I'm just like, just share my life. Just share my life. Like I might not write like the best posts like Alyssa on Instagram, right? Like I might not have the wording of X person, but it's like, for me, I just want to share my life and kind of weave the business into it. It's like a blender. Like you're not going to have separate ingredients that just separate, right? Like on Instagram, it should just be all blended up. And I think that that's something that like I try to explain to my team. I try to remind myself of. And so when I hopped in, you guys, like I knew nothing about nothing. I screwed up my first enrollment with my first customer. I had to call customer service. I was like, oh my God, Erin's going to hate me. I'm literally an idiot. I suck at this already. And I haven't even got started. Okay. Like I signed my first customer, messed it up. I remember her messaging me one time and being like, hey babe, it's totally fine if you steal my post, but make sure you change my phone number. Did that. Did like just so many things, you guys, that I've failed on. But I just kept going and I just kept learning and I kept getting better. And my motto is everything is figure outable. So if there's something that's working for somebody on TikTok, then I'm going to try to figure it out. If there's somebody that's working for somebody on Instagram, then I'm going to try to figure it out, because like, why not? Like, why would I not? And I think that has served me probably the most out of anything else in doing this business, is that just having that mindset that like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. Like, I might suck at first. It might be awkward on a live video. I might be awkward doing a Zoom. I might be awkward back in the day when I first, like my very first thing when I went diamond was like, it's like a call, like you call in and you have like a code and you get promoted to like the person who can speak. And there was like 3 of us who got promoted to diamond, and like I did that and like called in, and like I remember like being so nervous I had to go into the garage and like not let my husband listen to me. Okay. And so, but that's the thing, is like you just get better and you just fail and you fail forward, right? You fall, just fall forward and lean into it and then stand back up again and then fall forward and stand back up again. And like I think if you're a mom, like you can relate this business a lot to that, because as a mom, you don't know what the hell you're doing, like at all. Like you're just like, every day, cool, I'm gonna try it, try again, and try again. I'm gonna apologize when I mess things up, and I know that I'm just gonna pray to Jesus that like I don't screw this kid up too bad. And I think that that's kind of like my favorite thing about the business, is it's so forgiving. And I know that was a really long-winded version of how I got started, but I didn't even tell you the rest, but I'm not going to bore you guys.
That's okay. No. So, okay. So a couple things that I just like took from this. I had to whip out my notebook and start taking notes. But so the first thing that you said that I really, really loved was you thought, is my story going to be good enough? And I think that's a huge misconception. And my leaders know, we've talked about this on Zooms before, that like, you don't have to have this super sad, horrible life experience story to then have this like great comeback story. You look at people like Ashley Sinclair, who, was very, very successful in what she did. She was a boutique owner. She knew a lot of people. She was doing great. And she figured, hey, I'll make some extra money. And it just, blew up into what it did. But you don't have to have this like horrible, like, woe is me, my life was awful and I'm going from rags to riches story to be able to be successful. You need to just be yourself, share your life, and you're going to find the other yous of the world, that.
Well, and I think too, like the more stories you hear, you'll be able to pull different ingredients from each story and make your own recipe. Right? Because like for me, it's not like I came up with like my whole story by myself. Like I heard bits and pieces of somebody else's story and I related to that. Like Denise says, I didn't go from rags to riches, but I went from surviving to thriving. And I was like, that was me. I went from surviving to thriving, and like, it's okay. Like, and hearing other people and you're like, oh, I connected that part of their story, but I connected that part of that person's story and that part. And so like I encourage you guys, like, get inspired by hearing other people's stories, but use some of like what I say when you talk to your potentials or when you share your story on your page, because like we're all stealing things from each other. Like, there's no copyright on like the way I tell my story or the way somebody else tells their story. So don't like feel guilty about what you come from, because here's the thing, you guys, everything is relative. You have to remember that everything is relative. Like your version of struggling might be so different from somebody else's version of struggling. Have you ever heard somebody who's like size 2 say that they're fat? Okay. They still say they're fat. And here's the thing, it's because it's relative. They might be fat for them, right? They might be like 5 or 10 pounds over what they normally are. And so it's all relative. And you have to kind of like wrap your head around that in order for you to be excited about telling your story if you feel like it's a story. Because here's the thing, Ed Milet talks about this being like a thermostat, okay? Everybody has their thermostat. Like your temperature is set at 75 degrees, okay? So your 75 degrees might be, it's obviously different than my 85 degrees, okay? And what I mean by that is, let's say you're at 75 degrees and like something really bad happens. Cold winter comes in. Your house is like 30 degrees. What's going to happen if your temperature is set to 75? It'll always come back up to 75. if your temperature, if it's hot and it's 85 degrees outside, it will always go back down to 75 until you reset your thermostat. And that's what this business will do for you. It will reset your thermostat. So how do you do that? Is number one, you make a lot of money, or number two, you surround yourself with people who have higher thermostats than you, and you'll become the average of that thermostat. But right now, I guarantee you, the people who are around you, the top 5 people you spend the most time with, not even physically, but just in your ears, in your eyes, like that you're seeing, that you're talking to, that you're texting with, whatever, those people, the voices that are in your head, you're the average of those 5 people. So you take the 5 people and you think, okay, what are the 5 people I spend the most time with? And what do I think that they make? Because you obviously probably don't know every single person's exact salary. Okay, you're the average of that. Weight, you're the average of your 5 friends. Faith, the average of your 5 friends. Every single thing, because it's all relative. What I mean by that is like, I'm going to have some people who, let's just use weight because it's like the most easy example. Like, you're going to have some people who are like your skinny friends, but you're also going to have some people that you're the skinny friend with. And you do that to make yourself feel better, right? And so until you start getting around people who make you feel like, I need to up my game, like in a good way, you won't up your game. Your thermostat will always be set to what it is, and you'll go back to some of the friends that make you feel better, but then you'll be with the friends that push you, but then you'll always have to go back to the friends that make you feel better. And so I'm giving you permission right now to get rid of the friends that are just making you feel better if they're not adding value to your life. And I think it's one of the hardest things anybody can do, because it's like we're so shamed in society by, oh, you're too good now. You're too good for us. You're too good, right? Like, oh, now she's too good. It's like, no, I'm not too good. I've just changed. And you have the opportunity to change too. So you can decide that you want to be the friend that uplevels your other friends. But that's on you. You have to decide that. It's not up for anybody else to decide. It's just, are you making that decision? Because it's not, you're not saying you can't sit with us. You're just saying, this is what my table is going to be. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm sitting. And then everybody else will want to follow you. You'll inspire other people to lose weight or to have more faith or to make more money or to whatever it is. And you don't want to be somebody who's just making other people feel comfortable. So hopefully that helped. I know that was like a big tangent.
Dude, so good. I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, you can just talk. I don't even have to ask any question. Just talk.
No, but I just think it's true. No, I mean, it's so true. People just get so caught up in that game of, oh, I don't want people to say I've changed, or I don't want whatever. But at the end of the day, we forget that, like, do you even like yourself?
It's so true. So like, I've been doing this for almost 5 years. May will be 5 years. And my friends that were my friends before I started this business, only one of them is still my friend, like only one of them I still talk to. And it's not because like there was like big falling outs or stuff. It was just like I surrounded myself with new people that made me feel better, Yep. It's just so good. And like with like the whole faith thing, like I was not I don't want to say I wasn't like a person of faith. Like I always like believed in something, but didn't really like know, And I would say in the last year, like, especially after having my son, I would say in the last like year and a half after having my son, I've like really come into figuring out like what my purpose is here for him, and like, just like getting into that. And it's hard. It's hard when you go 30 years without, having a relationship with Jesus, and then like you're trying to figure it out. And so like, I know a lot of, you talk a lot about Jesus and the Lord and your faith and all that. Were you always a person of faith? Were you always a believer, like really into all this stuff? Or was it something that came more like with the business?
I love that question. I don't really get asked this question a lot, but so I grew up Catholic. So same. I don't know, like when I was even in college, like I just always going to church had always been something, but the relationship was never emphasized, right? It was just like, you go to church, that's your time with God. And you have this relationship, you're reverent with him, you're very respectful, like all of these things. But like, it was like, there was no authentic like relationship between me and him. It was more him and the church. Like it wasn't a personal thing. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So for me, like I always had the habit of going to church, and I loved, like, I didn't like, I mean, obviously as a kid, I didn't really like going to church, but like even during college, like there would be some weekends I remember going to church, like, and I wasn't somebody that was trying to shove anything down people's throats. But I remember when I went to, like, me and my husband met, and he believed, but he never really grew up going to church. And um, we ended up going to a church together. And obviously, Catholic is not the most diverse denomination out there. Let's just say that. My husband is Black, and I wanted to find something that would make us feel both comfortable, there, and not have it just be like where I grew up, where it was just like all white people who were in the Catholic Church. And it could have just been a function of where I grew up, but that's just how it was. And so when we were living in Charlotte, we decided we wanted to find a church together. So we kind of went church shopping, if you will, and we found a church that we both really liked. It was a non-denominational church, and got baptized together. And I think for me, that's kind of like when it started. Just God had God. If you guys don't know, God's always pursuing you. Jesus is always pursuing you, even if you don't realize it, even if you feel like you're running away from him, he doesn't care. He's still going to pursue you. And so during that whole time, it was like, I respected the Catholic religion, and I still do to this day. My dad and my parents are both practicing Catholic still. But I think I wanted somebody who knew what it was like to be like in a marriage, who knew what it was like to have kids, right? And a priest doesn't do that. He's not, and it doesn't mean that they're not amazing people, because they are. Like, they're married to God, right? That's how they view their relationship. But for me, it was more, I want somebody talking to me from like personal experience. Like, I want it to be like they knew what it was like to fight in your marriage, or they knew what it was like to have kids and struggle, with that, whatever that thing that I was going through. And I felt like priests were almost like I couldn't relate to them. And so for me, that's when it kind of started. And then as I got into the business, I just became a lot more comfortable talking about it. I wasn't like going like, hey, do you believe in Jesus? Like, to people. But I think as I started going into the business and diving deeper with it, I just got more vocal about it. And still don't say like, hey, do you believe in Jesus? But like, I just openly talk about it. And I don't know, number one, how people parent without faith. I really don't. I don't know how people parent without faith. Like, it's seriously, I don't. I would have so much anxiety would it not be for Jesus. And if you have anxiety over being a parent, you need to give your kids to Jesus. And I'm telling you, it will do wonders for your mental. And I don't know how people do this business without faith, because faith is, by definition, the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. Okay, so it's desires that God puts on our hearts, and we're believing in them before we see them. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second, because there's a difference between sight and vision. Okay, and sight is what you actually are seeing. So that's your numbers in eSuite. That's like the physical enrollments you're having. That's like your volume growing as you see it in eSuite. But what vision is where you are going that you haven't seen yet. And that's why, for those of you guys who have promoted or have had like really high success in this business, at some point, you're on the mountaintop, right? You're on this mountaintop and you're like, oh my gosh, like, when you're on the mountaintop, what happens? You have the sight, because you can see it, right? And when you see it, it's so much more real. But what happens when you go to the valley? Because it's inevitable, happens, right? You need vision, because you can't see, because you're in the valley. Right? What's surrounding you is the mountains the one you just climbed, and then the next one you're going to climb. And what God says is that from mountaintop to mountaintop, we just want this bridge. We want this bridge. Like, okay, I hit it here. So let me go from like emerald to diamond. Let me go from making 2,000 to 5,000 a month. Or let me be like this okay parent to this really great parent in whatever aspect of your life. But what God says is, from mountain to mountain, I didn't make bridges. I made valleys. And he does that because in order to get to this next mountain, you have to be capable of climbing it, or else when you get to the top, you won't be able to sustain it. And I'm not trying to be like all philosophical on you guys. I'm just like a very visual person. And so when people talk about things like this in a visual standpoint, like from mountains and valleys and all that stuff, it helps me to like understand what part I'm going through and what things that I struggle with, and understanding like there is a mountaintop I'm still climbing. Like I just have to remind myself of that vision. We have to have people around us who are always going to remind us of the vision. That's why the vision boards are so important, right? Because things happen 2 times. They happen first in your head and second in reality, good and bad. Everything, how many times does something bad happen? You're like, told you that was going to happen. I told you that was going to happen. Like I knew it, right? How many times? It happens all the time. We do that all the time. It's because we are fearing the worst. Okay. And we have to get rid of doing that because we're manifesting our future in a negative way. And if you've never watched The Secret, watch it tonight. Not even kidding. Don't go to bed without watching it. I watch it. I try to watch that probably once a month, because I have to remind myself. Like we get so clogged with like all this other stuff that's hitting us, but like you just have to remind yourself. Sometimes it's not learning something new, it's remembering what you already know. And that's why we don't, like, you've been to conference 4 times, you've done try-its all the time, you've gone to events, but like you just need to be reminded sometimes. Just like our kids, right? I'm going to go back to this. Like, just like our kids, like how many times does it tell you not to put your hand in the car door? How many times does it tell you not to touch the hot stove? We just have to be reminded. And so put yourselves in position to be reminded and around people who will remind you, and it will be so much easier. So yeah, I don't know if that answered anything.
No, it's good. You're good. Like I said, you could just talk, and I'm just like, yes. I'm like page 4 of my notes right now. I'm kind of just gonna like jump through just because of how our conversation is going right now. But like, so we're talking about vision and stuff. So when you are like casting vision for your team, when you are helping your team, because at this point you're you're working. At this point, I'm assuming you're looking at your chart and you're like, who can I help? Like, who am I helping next? How do you cast that vision for them, especially someone who's like brand new popping into this business and they just don't even realize what they have their hands on? Like, how do you show that to them?
So life and death is in the power of the tongue. So that old saying of like sticks and stones won't break my bones, like, or will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, or whatever it is. It's like the most BS thing ever. If you're human, you've been hurt by words before. Okay. And I think that it's like, yeah, it's okay to like be tough. And like when we're kids, it's important to teach our kids that, like, listen, that person who said that to you, they're an idiot, but we can't really say that. So we come up with these little like cliche sayings like that. And, but I think for me, it's just speaking life. And one thing that I did when I got into the business, probably started this 3 years ago, I kept praying, Jesus, help me see people the way that you see them. Because I was getting so frustrated with people. And I am like, I'm a dominant red. And so I'm very competitive. I work really hard. Like I have a goal and I'm going to meet it, like whatever that is. And I think that I expected everybody else to be motivated by the same thing and operate the same way that I did. And when we put those expectations on people, what are we setting ourselves up for? Disappointment. And I don't want to be disappointed in people. And so for me, it was praying that prayer was such a game changer of, let me see people, Jesus, the way that you see them. Let me see them in their strengths. Because what tends to happen, and all of you guys have gone through this in a relationship, if you've never gone through this with your business, you've gone through this with a relationship where you've been hurt and you take it on the next person that you're in the relationship with, right? It's the same thing in the business. We've been hurt by one person and we're like, oh gosh, well, let's pray this person's going to be our next runner, like whatever. And like mentally, like we don't really do that. So a couple of tips that I have for you guys when it comes to this. Number 1, I put everybody in my phone with a diamond in front of their name that signs with me. Everybody that I sign is my next diamond. That's the way I view it. I'd much rather be disappointed than never to have believed in anybody. Sometimes when we're making these decisions about like, and there's subconscious decisions a lot of times about like, oh gosh, I don't want to, like, I just don't want to think that this person's going to do good and then be disappointed again. But like, okay, so what, are you just never going to believe anybody again? Like that's your choice. And I think for me, I I don't care if I'm disappointed. Like, I don't care. Like, for me, that's part of it. Like, I'm going to be disappointed, but I also know that I have to lower my expectations, and not in like a way where I'm like, oh, I'm becoming less, but like what they do, it doesn't define me. And I think we have to stop putting so much pressure on our teams and start loving them to the top, right? Like, there's no reason to ever rip your team a new one, ever. Do you think people join this business and want to suck? No, nobody does that. Nobody joins and they just want to be horrible. No, but life happens. And so the colors has really helped me learning the color personality test. I have there's a bunch of trainings, knowing your own.
Ask where do you like send people? Like, if you're like, go figure out what your color personality is. Like, there's
the Jacob Adamo is the test that I use. I'll type it in the chat.
Jacob Adamo.
Yeah, and somebody can just Google it. Jacob Adamo.
I was just like wondering, because I'm like, there's like a bajillion different ones, and I'm like,
that's the one that I like the most. And the first two colors are like the most important colors. Your first color is going to be one that's like, so I'll just give you a brief overview. Red is like dominant. They're going to be like your kind of leaders. They're going to be really blunt, straightforward, to the point. You're going to have blues, who are like the life of the party. They're the most fun. They're loud. They have crazy hairstyles. They dress funny sometimes, like funny, like they're just trendy, right? Then you have greens, who are very analytical. They're the ones that like are going to need to see the whole comp plan. They're going to want to like send you all the questions before a Zoom. Like, yep, that's going to be like the green and the person. And like, I actually tested 0% green. So like, and then yellows are going to be like your team players. They're super compassionate. They want everybody to win. They love like being a part of it, like a team, and like helping everybody. Okay. So for me, I'm red blue, meaning red is like that's my goal setting. And then my blue is more of like, I just want to have fun. And if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. And so I've had to really learn how to talk to both of those colors. Like, I know it sounds like a crazy person, like I'm in a psych ward or something, but I promise I'm not. But like, for me, my red is bad when I put all my expectations that are from myself on other people. And then my blue is bad when I start not wanting to do the things that aren't fun for me in the business. Okay. And so I will like have to just learn how to be more disciplined. And the colors are never an excuse for you to behave in a certain way. They're just reasons and an understanding for you to learn what you do need to work on. So it doesn't mean your personality is your excuse. You're not like a victim to your personality. You can change it. You can adapt. You can become a better version of your colors. You should never try to become a color you're not, because it just won't work, but becoming better versions. And so I think for me, like learning that and understanding people, that's the first thing I send newbies, is I have them take the test. It's the first thing I send them, because that will help me learn how to train them, and not like what I'm training them on, but how I'm training them. Because I think like for me, if Erin, when she would have trained me, if she would have sent me like the comp plan and like 1,000 like documents, I would have like ran the other direction. Whereas like, if I do that for like somebody who's green, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like they like freaking eat it up. And so eventually I'll send everybody the comp plan. I'll tell them where to find it. They know how to get it, but like, I'm not doing that first with somebody who has no green in them. If somebody's blue, I'm just going to talk about like, oh my gosh, dude, we're going to have so much fun. Okay. Tell me about your life. Like, tell me all about it. Yellows, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get to know the names of their kids. I'm going to know all of that stuff. Reds, they don't care. Just show them how to make the money, tell them what to do, give them specific instructions, and be like, okay, did you want to post this today or tomorrow? Like, they'll be like, tomorrow. Okay, cool. Okay, next, here's your next step. Always like doing stuff like that's more straight to the point. So I think when you understand that, like, it's not you, when you join, it never becomes about you again. It's always about helping somebody else. Okay. And I think that that's like one of the most that's the hardest part. But when you can master being like a selfless leader, then you'll become a really good leader. Have you always felt that way? Or when you first joined, were you like, you know what I mean? I feel like it took me personally, it took me building to diamond pretty much with like no one working, losing it, and having to build it back up before I had any type of appreciation for my team. Yeah, for
And
sure.
I think I feel like I was very red when I first started this business, and now I feel like I'm like got a lot of yellow going on.
Well, I think it's just really honestly like part of it's just maturity and wisdom. And it's not a color. It's just the maturity and the wisdom that comes with the business, but I do think that like reds can tend to be very like it's about me and I'm the one that created my success and whatever. And I think until you realize you do create your success 100%, it is like you doing it, but like it's you helping other people. Like so like I think that we are constantly taught differently and we're torn like between like, oh, be this selfless leader, but like also make sure you get your butt where you need to be for your promotion, right? And it's like this contradictory stuff that we're taught, but it's like there's a twofold piece to it. So for me, it's like when you said, oh, you look at your chart and you see who can I help? Well, the most important person that I help is myself. And I'm not saying that from a selfish way. I want you to hear me on this. But if I'm not helping myself, what credibility do I have to help anybody else? Like if I never went diamond, you're never asking me on a Zoom. If I never went double diamond, you're never asking for my tips. So I might have the greatest tips in the world and could help a million people, but until I prove my credibility for myself, nobody's going to listen to me. And I think that like once I understood that and like then I would like take my yellow super far and like be like, oh, well, I'm just going to be this like amazing yellow leader and like so caring about my team and whatever. And then it like hurt me in the opposite direction because then I would get so mad or upset when people left. Like I would be like, take it so personally. And I would like dwell on these people and be like, what did I do wrong? Like, how could I help them? Like, and so it's like this healthy balance of understanding that like you need to help yourself so you can help other people. How can you help anybody in your team go diamond if you never went diamond? How could you help anybody rebuild diamond if you never lost diamond? How could you ever, you know what I mean? Like there's so many aspects to that. But one thing that I did is at the end of one of the years, I think it was 2017 maybe, I asked all my leaders, I said, tell me your biggest goal on your board. And so everybody sent me one and I put Post-it notes on my dream board with their goals. Okay. So I put Post-it notes, like their goals were covering my goals. Cause I knew if I helped them accomplish those goals, then I would accomplish mine. Right. So I told Pam Souter this, thinking she was going to be like, oh my God, that's so amazing. She was like, that's pretty dumb. Literally what she said to me. And I was like, what? Like what? I was in her house. I'll never forget this. And I was literally like thinking she was going to be like telling me how amazing I was. And she was here telling me that I was dumb. And she said, the first person they have to see accomplish goals is you before they even believe that they're going to be able to do it. And I was like, dang, you're so right. Like, you're so right. And like, when I thought about it for myself, like I never would have believed that I could go ambassador if I never saw Aaron do it. Like it just wouldn't have been on my radar. I would just been like, yeah, okay. But like fact, like she did it. Like I know her, like she's a real person. Like she did it. Then like it allowed me to go after it. And I think that we underestimate that sometimes. And it's like, do it. If you want to motivate somebody, do it without them. That's going to inspire them, right? That's going to inspire them. Like everybody else is so much more inspired by me than my team. Right? Because they like, and I say that like lovingly, like they love me, but like everybody else looking from the outside, and it's so much easier to be inspired. But like when you know the ins and outs, it's like so normal. It's like the everyday thing. That's just what we do, right? And so make sure that you are like knowing what everybody else wants, but you have to know that in order for you to inspire them, like you have to go ahead and do it. Like you should not wait on anybody. And I don't say that in like a mean way, and that's not for you to be selfish. I'm not telling you to be selfish. What I'm telling you is the most selfless thing you can do is to go ahead and do it. I gave this, I'm sure you might have heard this before, but I've given this example before because I'm all about analogies of like, you're taking this, like everybody put in the comments, like one place they would love to go that's in the continental United States. Okay. There's some place you would love to go in the continental United States. So let's call it LA. Okay. Yep. Cali. Okay. Let's call it LA. So you guys are all on this you decide, I'm getting this bus. It might be like a VW van, okay, like a Volkswagen van, or it could be like a whole bus, whatever you envision right now. And you're like, I'm going. And you're like so pumped, dude. And you're telling everybody, you're like, listen, Jasmine's like, y'all, everybody, I'm about to go. It's about to be lit. Like, we're about to have so much fun, about to have champagne popping on the bus. Like, it's about to be amazing. So you're like, okay, cool. And all of her friends are like, yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go. So day comes, she rents a car, and she's like so excited. Everybody's about to hop in. She gets a call. A couple people aren't showing up. Okay. She goes, one of her girlfriend's house, picks her up, knocks on the door, no answer. Does Jasmine not go? Or is she going? She's still going, right? She just doesn't care. She's still going, right? Because it's her dream to get to LA. So she's going, and she's like, all right, cool. Like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm going. Cool. I'll let you know how it is. It's no big deal. Get halfway. We're in Oklahoma, Texas. People are like, I got to go back. Like, there's emergency at home. Like, I can't come. Like, I can't do this whole thing with you. I gotta go back. She's like, okay, cool. Get out. Like, go ahead, take a flight home. Like, I'm not turning this thing around. Like, I'm not just stopping. Right. So she's continuing to go on. She goes on. There's some pit stops. She has to fill up for gas. She has to do all X, Y, and Z, whatever. But she gets to LA. And she's taking pictures, and it's just as amazing as she thought. And she's posting about it. And all those people who, number one, didn't show up, number two, had to leave early or whatever, they are calling her like, hey girl, how can I come? And she's like, here's the instructions. I'm going to tell you exactly how you get there. Here's our address. You can come stay whenever you want. That's your journey on this business. But if you never get there, people will never know how to get there. And so don't let anybody stop your trip from LA to happening, right? Don't let anybody, and whatever LA is for you. And here's the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to get off my little soapbox. If LA is big enough, the process doesn't matter. Nobody's asking you to enjoy the entire process, right? Nobody's saying, oh, Jasmine, I hope you enjoy driving 12 million hours on a bus to LA. But like, she doesn't care how long it takes her to get there, because that's where she wants to go. It's the same thing. Why do you think about this? Why in the heck do people have kids? Think about that. You are literally creating this thing from this egg, and it's growing, and it's kicking your ribs, and it's growing inside of you, and it's like so uncomfortable. You can't sleep. Then you have to birth the baby out of your private parts. Thinking about that is miserable. Why does anybody do it? It's because they want the baby. So the process becomes irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you were to go through that for 18 months, you do it. If you had to go through that for 5 years, you do it. Some people pay over $100,000 to have in vitro. Some people pay for surrogates. Some people pay for whatever, adoption. It doesn't matter, because if you want the baby that bad, you'll do whatever it takes. If you want something that bad, the process, the journey becomes irrelevant. And so my question is, what's your baby? What is that thing that you want to happen so bad that it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get to ambassador, or how long it takes you to get to X, whatever that goal is? Because goals are so dumb. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, they're important, like, but they're so dumb. Like, because what happens when you hit one? I'm going to tell you, first thing that happened when I hit ambassador, I was like, what's next? What's next? Yeah, you celebrate, but the journey is the whole important thing. Like, the attainment of the goal is maybe some confirmation, but the person that you become in the process is so much better than any attainment of any goal. Okay, I'm done. Cut me off.
No, just so, first of all, I've never heard the analogy about where we're going in the bus or the baby thing. So like, that was just like so good. But sorry if you can like hear my husband snoring in the background. I had to move my desk into my bedroom because I wasn't working in my office. So I'm like, I need to just have my desk in my bedroom. And now my husband snores when I do Zooms. It's whatever.
No, I love it.
He's like, probably sounds like a bear back there. But okay, so like, just I'm asking, I don't even know if you saw my message before we got on here, but I'm asking you this like for me, because this is something, so I've been in this business for almost 5 years. I went diamond, lost it, went double, lost it, got it back. Now I'm like pushing for triple, and I feel like I've been pushing for triple forever. And I feel like how do you get clear on your why? Like, I don't know what my why is anymore. And it's so funny because you were talking about like the Post-it note thing. So literally my husband was like yesterday, the day before, he's like, why don't you message everyone on your team and like find out like what rank they want and like what it would mean to them. And then like, let that be your why. And I'm like, but that won't push me. Like, I know that it won't. Like, I want my team to be successful. And like, guys, I love you. Like, you're all on here. I love you all. But like, that's not going to get me. Like, if my kids are not getting me out of bed, to like be pushing my business, like what else is going to? And so like, I'm just like struggling so hard with the why, with figuring out what my why is right now. Cause when I first joined, like I needed $300 for my car payment because that shit was going to get repossessed. My mom was paying it for me and it was embarrassing. And like, and then I went diamond and you saw a $3,000 paycheck and I was like, wow, like this is lit. And then I went double and like, earlier last year, like I saw like huge double checks, like almost $8,000. And I'm like, dude. And then it was like, oh, but like, that's cool. Like, okay, so I made like $8,000. Like, I don't know, like, what am I doing now? And it's just like trying to figure out like, what's that next thing to like push me to that next level. And I just like, I can't wrap my brain around it. And it's like such a struggle. And like, I mean, 5 years, I don't know if you've ever went through, feeling like what's going to drive me to like do more, be more, I just like, I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So I love this question. I think sometimes we make it like have to be this like huge, big thing of like, oh, it has to be this like one sentence thing. Okay. And for me, what's really helped is understanding, okay, let's think about this. So for you, Asia, if you want to go triple, and everybody can answer this question, who is a triple diamond? Like not a person, but like what characteristics do they embody? Are they consistent? Are they selfless? Are they servant leaders? Are they bold? Are they consistently doing self-development? So not only who are they, but what are they doing? And I think the biggest thing for me that was blocking me when I had this was like pride of like, oh, and like at first I would have completely denied this if somebody would have said this to me. So if the first thing is you're like, no, I'm not prideful, then like it probably is pride. But here's the thing is that I say this in a way of like, pride isn't something that anybody chooses. I never thought that I would be a victim to being prideful or like arrogant or whatever. But when you accomplish goals, right, then it's like, oh, I did that. Okay, but you didn't sustain it. And I think that that's like something that's like your income will never exceed your self-development. And if it does, it will always go back down like the thermostat. Okay, so you'll attain this for a little bit, but then it will go back down. So my thing is like, don't try to put your why in a box. Like, don't try to put your why into like, this is what my why is. Like, this is how it's like, no, like decide who you want to become. Like, who do you want to be? Like, not what rank, like not what like amount of money, like, but like, what do you want? Who do you want to be? And I want everybody to like answer this honestly. You can write it down or you can put this in the chat. I would like a couple people at least to put it in the chat. Is like, what is a limiting belief that you have right now that's holding you back? Like, in other words, like, what is the reason you're not where you want to be right now? So it could be like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm bored, whatever. Okay. So put something right there that's like holding you back. It might be like, okay, I'm scared of failure. Okay. I'm a procrastinator. I'm a one-hit wonder. Okay. Okay, cool. So I want you to write down now, what negative consequences have you already experienced because of that belief? Like this, and listen, This limiting belief you have is not just in your business. This permeates throughout your whole life. I want you to know. So this fear of failure, this affects your sex life. This fear of this procrastination will affect your parenting. This will affect whatever. Okay. And so what negative consequences has it already happened in your marriage, with your kids, in your friendships, and any other relationships, in your relationship with God? What has happened? Okay. So my next question is have you suffered enough? Have you suffered enough? And I want you to ask yourself, what if I continue to believe this for the next 5 years? Because you are choosing to believe it. Okay. Every day that you think you don't have control of your thoughts is a lie. That's a lie. The Bible, it says, take every thought captive. You are choosing to believe this. You are wearing it and you are choosing it just like the clothes you picked out this morning. Are you choosing your self-worth or are you choosing your self-doubt? Which clothes are you putting on? Because we all know, especially as women, we're super guilty of this. It's like a snowball thought process. It's like, oh God, I have one pimple. Oh my God, I'm so fat. Oh my God, I'm just like the ugliest friggin' person in the universe. Like, it's like this whole snowball thing. Okay. And it just builds and builds and builds. And the bigger it gets, the faster it rolls downhill and the quicker it gets big. Okay. And so if your belief isn't giving you anything, then it needs to go. It has to go. And so after we get off this, because we don't have time to do all this, but like, I really want you guys to sit there and make yourself for 20 minutes and put on like really creepy, eerie music and think about how bad your life would be if you continue to believe this thought for the next 5 years. I'm being dead serious, because it will make you be like, I never want to believe that thought. Like, what the hell am I doing believing that thought? Like, that is the dumbest thing. And actually, you should also say it out loud. Like, one of mine, when I did this with, I think it was, it was like, I don't even remember it because that's how much work I've done on myself. But like, it was something. And I remember just being like, I even said it. And like, when I said it out loud, you know, when it just doesn't feel right coming out. Cause like, I want you guys are all muted. So just say it out loud. Say it out loud and say it. And like, I want to hear you see your mouth move. Say what your limiting belief was out loud. And like, it feels bad, doesn't it? Like, it's just like, you sounds dumb. Like when you hear yourself say it, you're like, and if it doesn't feel good when it comes out, it means it's not true. It means it's not true. Okay. And typically 9 times out of 10, I've learned that voice that's saying that to you wasn't even your voice. It's somebody else's voice from like when you were in 5th grade. The one person who was fat that called you fat, or the one person who said like whatever. And so for me, I also will sometimes, if I feel myself going back to a certain thought, I'll say it in like this annoying voice, like, you're not smart enough. Like, it's like, I just want to hear myself sound so dumb. Okay. Because it's so dumb. Like, the things that you're saying to yourself aren't even true. And when you really think about it, you know, it's not true. You know that it doesn't matter if you have credibility or not. You know, it doesn't matter or not if you fail, because what's failure anyways? What is that? Right? You know that procrastination is a choice that you choose every day, and you can get over it and you can do it. And people who procrastinate are still super successful at this business. Hello, I'm one of them. Okay. Like, you know that you're motivated. You're just not looking for the right areas for your motivation, because you're looking in the same places other people are looking for, and God didn't make you that way. Right? You know all of these things. Like, you know you're good enough to succeed. You know it doesn't matter who rejects you, because the person that you crave love from the most still accepts you, and he's already died on the cross for you. So like, here's the thing. Now the thing you have to do is decide what you're going to replace that belief with. So what's your new empowering belief? So I want you to cross that belief out that you had and write, the old BS belief was, and my new belief is. So if your old BS belief was, I'm not good enough to succeed, is, I might not be good enough right now, but I'm getting better every day, and I'm going to be good enough. Okay. Because your brain knows how to call bullshit, like, a lot. Like, your brain will call bullshit on you all the time. So like, if you just say like, I'm good enough, like, shit doesn't work. Okay. I'm just here to tell you, like, it just doesn't work. So you have to say like, I'm like, if you don't feel like you're good enough right now, it's not going to change like 1 second. So you have to say like, I'm getting better every day and I don't have to be perfect to be successful. Okay. And so you have to have that new empowering belief that you replace it with. But my question to you, and you have to ask yourself, like, what would happen if I chose to believe that for the next 5 years? If I chose to believe my empowering belief, how would that make my relationships different? What would my life look like then? And I think that like I don't have this like really big why either, Asia. Like I don't have this like one thing where I'm like, this is what I want, right? Like I have goals and I have things like marks and check marks, but like my goal and like my why is like I don't ever want to get to heaven and meet Jesus and be like, he'd be like, you had this that I gave you and this that I gave you and this that I gave you, and because you didn't, you just decided you didn't want to, or you didn't believe that you could, or whatever, you never fulfilled all the things that you could have done. You could have helped this person, you could have helped that person, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have saved your, you know, you could have had this $1 million savings account for your kids when you passed away, but because you chose not to, you didn't. And you have all these unopened blessings, just like gifts sitting on the wall. And I think for me, like, that's like the biggest thing is it's not this like one why, like, because when we join it is, and we have to start somewhere and we have to have those small incremental goals, and you still have those small incremental goals. But just because you accomplish $3,000 a month does not mean that all of a sudden you have to go start a school in Africa. Like, you know, and I think that that's what we think. It's like, oh, I've accomplished that. So like now I have to like do some big humanitarian work. Like I feel I did that. I told my husband after I went ambassador, I was like, oh, I need more. And like, he got offended by that. He's like, why do you need more than providing for our family? Why? Like that doesn't, and I was like, dang, I never thought about it like that. Like why? Like, and I'm not saying that God's not calling me to do more. It's just like, why do I have to have more motivation than that? And it's not, it's just, I was looking in the wrong areas. And I was thinking that I had to put my why in a box and make it some pretty thing tied with a bow so that whenever I got on stage, I could just share it and be like, this is my why. It's like, no, it's not always going to look like that. So hopefully that answered your question. That was really long.
No, this is like probably one of like maybe the best Zoom that like I've ever been on with hosted. I don't even know. I'm just like sitting here like, yes. My phone's like blowing up. My chats are like, oh my God, this is so good. I need the recording. This is done. Okay, so the family call is starting in like 2 minutes. So last thing I want to ask you, because I know you're like huge on personal development, you're like always whipping out a book and reading stuff. So like top 5 must reads, like you need them for your life, your business, your marriage, like everything. You cannot die without reading these books. What are they?
So for newbies, I would definitely read Rhinoceros Success, The 4-Hour Work Week, and The Magic of Thinking Big. If you haven't read those, I would definitely read those. Even if you're not new and you haven't read them, read those.
What was the second one? 4-Hour Week?
The 4-Hour Work Week. Mm-hmm. For people who are struggling with like money mindset, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is the only book you need to read. So good. There's
I'm
also
currently reading that right now.
It's so good. There's also another one that I'm about to read that I've heard really good things on called Get Rich Lucky Bitch.
I am listening to the Audible for that, right?
Yeah, I've heard that's really good.
It has like an accent and it's weird. So I think I have to like actually physically read it because I can't get down with her accent with her reading it. She's like very British, I think, and it's very heavy. And I'm like, I'm not into this. So,
so that's good to know. And then I think if you're just looking for somebody to give you like a kick in the butt, I would read Relentless. It's not spiritual at all. There's cussing and you'll be like, dang, this is like an intense book. And it really is. But that's like what I need sometimes. And so you have to decide like what works for you. It's called Relentless. It's by Tim Grover. He was actually Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's like personal trainer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins is also a really good one. Like if you're looking for some inspiration, like some no excuse mindset type stuff, that's a really good one. But I mean, I think it just depends on what season people are in. I know that's a pretty generic answer, but it really does. And like if you're looking for more business stuff, there's going to be more specific books. Like if you're looking, Jab Jab Right Hook by Gary Vee is really good. If you're looking for more of just like, I want to know like who I need to become to be successful, the Success Commandments is really good. Also the Dream Life Journal by Denise Walsh really, really helped me. One of the things that she had me do in there, and I challenge my team to do it all the time, is write myself a letter 5 years from now and date back like all the things that like happened over the last 5 years. So if you were to do that tonight, it would be like you would date it February 23rd, 2025 and describe everything that you've accomplished in the last 5 years. And it made me like get really thoughtful and intentional about like what I wanted to happen, what I wanted my life to look like. Because so often, we think about what we don't want our life to look like. Yeah.
Is it the new book
so that one
came out with?
That one.
You can get this for super cheap on Amazon. FYI. I'll send the link.
Yeah. And for newbies, another one I always have them listen to is Go for No. And that one is free on YouTube. You can find like the free Audible on YouTube. And it's really good. Go for No. But I think so often like, and if you ever go to like counseling or therapy, like people will tell you like we are so good at deciding what we don't want, but so often we don't know what we do want. And so I encourage you guys to like do stuff like that. That's just making you write down like what you do want. If you do gratitude, like in the morning, like make sure you're writing down like things in advance that you're already grateful for. Because I mean, think about it in your marriage, right? Like how many times you're like, gosh, I hate that he does that. Okay, well, what do you want him to do? Right? Like what would you rather him do? It's the same thing. And like, if you don't want, oh my God, I don't want my kids to act like this. Like, okay, well, how do you want them to act? How do you want like your business to look in 5 years? Like, how do you want your life to look in 5 years? What kind of car do you want to be driving? What type of house do you want to wake up in? Where do you want to be living? Like, how do you want your team to be? What type of people are you looking to recruit tomorrow? Like, I'm very intentional. I pray. I'm like, God, send me people who are self-sufficient, people who are hungry and who are just joys to work with. Like, I don't just say like, oh Lord, help me sign 5 people. That'd be like, say like, oh Jesus, help me have a car. Like, I'm not trying to have like some janky car, right? Like the same thing, like get specific about what you guys want. Like, Lord, let me have an increase in your paycheck. Do you want $30? Do you want $30,000? Tell them what you want. Right? Don't be scared. And I think that for me, like really has helped.
This is just so good. So good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. If you don't care, I will close us in prayer.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for Asia and just her hunger and eagerness to learn tonight. Thank you for every single person that's on this Zoom, Lord. I ask that you just increase their business, that you enlarge their territory, that you increase their character, so that it will match the blessings that you're able to give them. We know that you are so ready to pour out blessings. You're just waiting on us to improve. You're waiting on us to step up. You're waiting on us to get ready for everything that you have for us. And we know that you've already claimed it for us. It's just ours for the taking. So let us not get distracted. Let us not fall into temptation to discouragement or anything like that, but let us choose to follow you and to help people in the way that you want us to. And just know that you've already done it. It's already done. The desires of our heart were placed there because you put them there, and that everything that we desire, we can get as long as we're willing to step and put the work behind it. We are your hands and your feet. And so let us just continue to step one foot in front of the other each day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate
Thank you guys for listening to me on my soapbox. Sorry, it was a little preachy tonight, but
hop on the family call because I just got the notification. I see Jasmine sending it to all